Hi, Stephanie Toman here, Ex-Alpha Project Reports. This video is going to be looking at charts, pivot tables, histograms and scatter charts. Really useful for a project, of course, to be able to put your information in and generate an exciting way of presenting it graphically to your reader, and nice and clear and things like that. So what we're going to do is have a quick look at some areas about how to look for charts and what's recommended, etc., before we go into these skills and features that are used in creating charts. So I've just got a resource here which you can get from the resources folder, and you can see here that I've got some very basic information, but you've got information like this. You've got, if you go up to the insert tab, all of your charts info is in here. You can ask for recommended charts. So if you wanted to think about how this data is going to be displayed, you can find lots of information in there if you want to choose something like that. And other ways of doing it is to actually just go in there. Sorry, escape. I'm going to put a chart in, so we'll just get rid of that. Scatter. You can also just go in and you can actually look for particular charts that you want. There's always more as well, so you might want to go for a histogram. Okay, so you might want to represent it with something like that if it's going up in stages, and it works these things out for you as well. You may just have some information, for example, here, and go into insert. You could go in and get a recommendation. They're pretty much line charts, bar charts, area charts, which are really good as well. Or you could go and say, well, I'm going to pick my own. I'll go for a pie or something like that, as long as it's not too much information. Quite a lot of info on that one, but it still works. So look around and get a feel for your data, depending on what you're using. This is very simplistic data, but if you have something that comes out, think about how it's displayed. And if you're not sure, you could always go in here. And if you're still unsure, obviously you can go onto the internet and have a look at things. But this usually will be enough information. And then when you do make it very exactly as it should be for that sort of information, you get lots of designs and you get lots of colours and things that you can change accordingly. If you haven't got, I've got a set style on it. And you can do that with your own right clicks, and using the format data series, as this video is going to show you all of these different things that you can do. Secondary axes, you can do gaps, so there's lots of ways that you can change how your chart looks, but it will go into more detail on that. But just to say, always have a, explore for charts and see what's the best way of representing your data to your audience. And you can see there's lots of things there. The only thing that's not there is the pivot charts, which we'll be following. Okay, so hope you enjoy, and here we go. Charts are pretty straightforward. I'm sure you've done a lot of these things before, at least some of them. So we're starting with the formatting worksheet right at the beginning. I'm just going to bring this down for you, so that you can see the areas of the syllabus that I'm going to demonstrate. So these are the areas you would be expected to know for the exam. So moving a legend, very straightforward. You can either right click on all of these features and you can format a legend, and that would bring up a side task pane. Or an easier way is to use what they call the chart elements. So when you're clicked on the chart, you click off, the elements have gone, click on it, the elements are there. So if you go to chart elements, there's your legend area there, and then you can move it and you can bring up more options, which is once again the task pane that I showed earlier on a right click, and you can even just click on it and delete it. Okay, let's bring that back in. So with regard to gap width, if you right click on one of the data series, the format data series appears on the right click. If you click that, once again you get the pane that comes with it, the task pane, and there's your gap with the area there. And you can see that if you keep going, you'll see the gap changing on the data series. Okay. Removing a turnover series and then adding it again. If we look down here, the green data series is the turnover. Just click off. You click on, you'll see the handles on each turnover. You can just hit the delete key and that will remove it from the data series without affecting the data. If I just undo that, keep an eye on the turnover information in the data sheet. Now, because I've clicked on the turnover here and you can see the handles activated, you can also see that that's the activation data there. And this is how we can move data off the spreadsheet. If I click on the spending one and I use that, I can then remove the December data there too. So it's whatever's activated here when you created your chart is what's being reflected in your spreadsheet. Let's just undo on both of those, they're back. So we deleted the turnover. I'm going to pop the turnover back in. So if we go to these chart tool tabs here, you've got design area and you have the formatting area. I'm going to use the design chart tools tab. And you have a select data here. This select data, we can now add that turnover again. So if we add a data series, our data series name is going to be turnover, and we can pick that up from A4 on the spreadsheet. And then the series of data, we click on there and expand it. It's going to be the data values that go with it that we want to be seen in our chart below. We OK that, and you can see already, even before I OK, that has been added. So it's took its series name from there and its sheet from data from there. If I click on it, it's back again. The next bit is talking about removing data series from the spending without deleting it. Remember how we did that? We click on the data series spending and then we can just move that away and that would do that. We're going to change the spending chart line type to a line chart. So the spending, once again, the purple, right click, change the series chart type. You don't use up here. If you use up here, both will change into line charts. So what we need to do is go down here. So we're changing the spending one. So it's the spending one we're picking up and we're changing it to a line chart and then OK. All right. And then the final thing is move it to a new sheet. So we're not going to cut it and paste it somewhere. We're actually going to move it properly. So if you right click, you get the option to move chart. However, depending on where you right click, you may or may not get this option, so be aware. So obviously right click there, you're going to get things to do with the legend. If you right click there, you get things to do with the formatting the data series here, it'll be a plot area, etc. Whereas here, on the chart area, you will get the chance to move the chart and you can move it into a new sheet and you can rename it there. So we call it chart 1. There it is on a brand new sheet. And then you can move it back again, back into an object within a sheet, and it's in the formatting sheet. OK, and then the chart with the sheet on its own, with this chart that's gone, and we're back to a formatting sheet. And then you can obviously make it bigger as you wish. The next sheet we're going to look at, and the thing on the syllabus, is spark lines. So this is in the new syllabus being introduced, quite straightforward. So as it says, it's a way of doing things graphically. So it's a good way of seeing things visually and graphically, and it shows mapping and changes over time. So if we look at this one here, that's already been done. This is a group. So if we right click on the spark lines, you will see the spark lines feature coming up. So in the exam, they may ask you to edit or to clear spark lines. So you've got your edit group. This is not a single one. You click on there. You can see that it's based on B4 to M4, 14, sorry. And then the location of it is that data range there. So if we cancel that and we clear it, so remember we have to right click, not doing a delete, into here, let's clear that group. So it's gone now.
highlight the range where you want to. So we want that data changes over here to be visually seen down here. So we go into this Insert tab, find the spark lines, the line area. The data is going to be B4 to M14. And it's already put it in because we highlighted it before we did. But if you wanted to put it in, then you could. Then when you're OK, those visual graphics will come up. You can see the 10 is not doing much, but it's going across. What's going across there is going down here. It's a single one. So if we right click and we look at this one, spark lines, and we go to edit the single group, this is based on just that data B14 to there. You can see the data, how it goes along and goes up. If we look at this one and we click in here and we do this single one across here, then we can auto fill in. So actually what we can do is go to the insert, let's click on the line again. Our data range is going to be, whoops, all of there, like we did before, and we've got it in 04. So if we OK, it'll do that. But if we come here and we highlight it to go down the range like we did before, then it will complete that range. And you can see it's exactly the same range, data range there. So just be aware of that. Remember, everything for Spotlights, if they're already existing, is on a right click, and you can do everything you need to do in there. Okay, and you can see I've just cleared that. Moving on then, continuing with charts, we've got about formatting the axis. So this is the y-axis here. So we want us to change this y-axis. So to activate your y-axis, double click on it, and then you get the format axis task pane coming up, and wants us to change it to, you might in the test ask you to do this, change the figures. It's going to be something sensible because it's got to be divisible down here so it looks right. Then if you're asked to use a label, you need to be aware that the labels are here. So you're not typing in a label, it's sat there already. When I click on it, you can see the thousands appears here and the data changes there. So we take it off, back to none, you can see how that changes. It may ask you to use thousands, 100 or something else. When it comes to changing these numbers, the formatting of the numbers, if you go all the way down, you have an area called number here. Just bring it down. When I select it, this becomes available, and you can find currency in here and lots of other things as well, all the stuff that you would find in the normal formatting area within spreadsheets. And you can change the decimal places to 0. And if you wanted to, you could change this to a different, I could have a euro or something. I'm going to leave it in pounds, and you can see that the format code is all there, and that's changed, and then they've changed to pounds. So that's everything we've done. Thousand separator, if you're asked about it in the test, if you scroll down here, and you'll see a little tick box is up. If we go back to number, and there it's there. That's your usual, but it has to be there. If you're in currency, you can't see it. But if you're in number, and they ask you to use the thousand separator, because if we've got that on, and we haven't got the thousands label all the way up there to none, you can see the separator there. Let's try and take that off now. Remember, it's got to be a number to be able to see it. Take it off, and it changes to how a graph chart area really should be in the format. But we're just in currency for fun. We've got our decimal places, thousand separator. We know where it is now, and then that's done. All those areas you need to think about in the exam, the syllabus. It comes to fill, pretty straightforward. You've got gradient fills, you've got picture fills. And when you do picture, you will get textures automatically. And there's your textures there. Okay, so although I've not really done anything, notice how my fill is applied to the chart area. Undo that. And you can see that if I click on these, that's what now will apply. If we go into our different types of texture, it's only affecting those. So remember, where you are in a chart will make a difference when you change it in the exam. So if you just clicked willy-nilly in here and you go in and you're asked to put in a texture, you can see what will happen. Okay, so let's go back to no fill. When we look at the data labels area, you can see that these all have outside end data labels. I click on them like I just did, and you can see the handles on each one, and you can hit the delete key and remove them all. So a right click on a data series going into add data labels will put them on outside end automatically or by default. However, if you're asked to do something else, it's a much easier way. Make sure they're all clicked as they are. Go into your chart elements, tick your data labels, and then on the options, you have all of the different options that you'd like to use. If there's an option that's not there, and click on the more, it might be that they want you to take the value off completely. If we go back to close that down, go back to your elements, data labels, more options. They may want you to put the category name and take the value off. It may be the series name and take those off. So be aware that there might be different ways of them wanting you to display those data labels, but nothing more than that. So nice and easy. You only need to ask to do them. You can do a single right click for an outside end, otherwise use your chart elements. Very simple. Okay, moving on to secondary axis, another thing that's very simple. If you right click on the line chart, make sure you're on it, format data series, you will get that automatically coming up. Then when you click on there and we close this, you can see that it now has a secondary axis. Secondary axis obviously is used if you've got very different data. If you also click on the next one, another part of the data series could be about filling with a picture or an image. So to do that, you know how we did when I said the word filling, that was a clue. Go into the fill and into the picture, to the folder, there you go, into the, and pick it up, and then put in a computer picture. And pivot tables are great for showing lots of information in different ways. Obviously, you can do it in charts as well. I like the charts myself, but pivot tables are really good too. So pivot table is found in the Insert tab and right in the top left-hand corner. Easily arrange and summarize complex data in a pivot table. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing. So if we click on the Create tab at the bottom of your workbook, and hopefully if I bring this down a little bit, you should be able to see why I've got things the way I have. So first of all, click in the pivot table data, click on the Insert tab and Pivot Table. We'll bring this down here. And what we've got is we've got a pivot table based upon the information that's been, it's got a hash around it all the way down to the bottom, so that's fine. And we're going to pop it into the existing worksheet, and the location is going to be where I've made it easy and placed it in the I-10. Okay, so I've marked it out for you. So once we OK on this, we get this template for a pivot table and the pivot table fields in our survey ready to be dropped in to where they need to go. So I'm just going to bring this over slightly so you can see it. Notice how the pivot table disappeared. I click back on here, the fields will come back in. Okay, so the pivot table pane can disappear once you go off, back on, and it's there. So what we're going to do is going to follow this. We're going to drag the town to the row labels, and we don't need to tick these. We can just drag and drop. We're going to drag, this is it building now, the sex field to the column area. The town again to the values area, because we're going to do a count of the town. Now it's come on count, probably because I've done this before. So if we go to the value field settings, it can be changed to something else. So if the exam asks you, or in the real world you're doing your own, it asks you to do a particular function, then you would choose it here, but we're happy with count. And you can see that I just pop this out of the way, you can see our pivot table is there. When I jump on there, it comes back on. So at the moment, we've got a survey with let's just bring that in and in there. We can see that we've got 2 females in Bristol and no males. So if you're asked to sometimes update the table with information, for example, if I just find a Bristol female and change that to a male with an M, when I've done that and enter, it doesn't change on here. I have to update or refresh the pivot table in order to do that. So if you right click, you get the option to refresh. You also have these tabs at the top. You've got an Analyze tab where you can find the refresh and a Design tab as well. If you want a chart of your pivot table, you can click there and it will produce a chart. That's not necessary for the exam, just so you know. The field list is off, the field list is on. Okay, another way of getting there. So you've got everything you need in the exam to do that. So if we did refresh there, then that female becomes 1 and the male becomes 1. Okay, if we're going to do anything with regard to the rows, we can filter because we've used it in the rows area here. So we could filter out particular towns and get the information for that. Okay, and then back on. If you work through here, you can see things like, you can have a look for yourself, but I've been messing around. And in this one, you can sort. So in our main one here, we can sort the data and the information of the grand total a particular way if we wanted to. And that would change it like that, or back to the other way. Okay, so you can just click in there and do a sort if you're asked to. So it's pretty straightforward. The next area that we're going to cover in the syllabus for pivot tables is grouping. So if we open up the grouping workbook, and I popped in another example of sorting just to remind you that that's how you can do a sort. People think they can't in a pivot table, and you can. And also I popped in a way of doing that filtering again if you wanted to have a play with that. You can see here that that's your filtering. What we're going to concentrate on is this grouping. So to ungroup this area, if I right clicked and did ungroup, it won't do anything. If I go to the Analyze tab and ungroup, also won't do anything. But if I click on the group itself and right click and ungroup, they become ungrouped and back to just single data. If I wanted to follow the question or the instruction down here, let's say it's in a test question, it wants me to define a Tyneside group, including Newcastle. Let's click on Newcastle, Control key, South Shields, and Tynemouth. And it wants me to group all of those under a group name Tyneside. So right click and group. There's the group one there. So I just type in Tyneside and it overtypes. Click in and there's my group. Okay, so you could do this on a number of things. You could put it into areas or regions. So that's manual grouping. And there's another one there if you want to play with it. What I'd like to do though before I finish this series is have a look at a diagnostic example of grouping. So the third one in the folder, we just open that up. So there's 2 areas in here I'd like to look at, the grouping and filter to hide selected items. So if you click in the dates and you click on group, so it's picked up all of the dates. If you can see down there, it's got 2006 all the way to 2008. And it's asking us to do it by quarters and years and take the months off. So if we OK, then it does it accordingly. Let's just undo that. Let's say in the exam, it didn't quite pick all the dates up automatically. So you can highlight using the little down pointed black arrow. When you do a click, ordinary left click, it will pick them all up automatically. And then you could do the group. It's got exactly the same information, but if these aren't ticked and you don't notice, you may not be doing the way you want to. Okay, so you can see that that one's worked. With regard to the filter to hide selected items, if we want to hide the east, we'd right click, there's the filter, so we're looking for the same language, right click and filter, and we're going to hide selected items. So it's all hidden, we can't see it. And then if we do it to the west as well, so filter, hide selected items. So now you can just see the data that you need to see. And remember, just as a quick one, if they ask you to change the data in a table, it's not the pivot table, it's in here. So if they ask you to change something to a data for 8th of the 4th, 2006, west to 16, it's this that you refresh, not that. Okay, so just be aware of that.